12 draft choices. That was a ton. You had 11 coming in. You wound up making 12. Obviously, let's start with the first one in Marvin Harrison Jr. What was happening in your draft room before making that pick? Was your phone blowing up with trade requests, chatter? Because you were the one who said, I'm not going to talk about it until I'm on the clock.
Yeah, Rich, I think with that is a lot of that legwork was done during the day on Thursday, and phone calls were made and some parameters were laid down, and some teams were, hey, wanted to wait and see themselves on who was going to be left on the clock once we got through the first three picks. And so, we had those initial discussions with multiple teams. And, then once those first three picks came and, we took those phone calls, and really ultimately there was nothing that came close to getting us to move off that pick. So, we had done a ton of work on Marvin, and really at that point it was really a no-brainer for us. And we were excited to put that pick in at that point.
So the legwork during the day, what does that entail when you say that?
Yeah. So, I think really the month leading up to the draft, there's people, phone calls, hey, we would be interested. What would it look like coming up to number 4? And really the specifics of that aren't laid out until really the day of the draft. And so it's similar to what we did last year. And so on Thursday during the day, teams actually started putting picks to the offer and really getting specifics with those offers. And so, some of those were, hey, we want to wait until we see who's exactly on the clock. And some of those were, hey, would you do it right now? And really both of those, once we got on the clock and really leading up to that, those offers just didn't come close to getting us to move off the pick.
Well, and in terms of that, I'm imagining that had Drake May been available at 4, that would have potentially changed the dynamic, because most likely the guy you drafted would have been chosen 3rd, and thus off the board where you couldn't take him. And I imagine that's when the legwork bonanza would have actually hit. Is that a safe way to map it out, Monty? There, do you think?
I think that's possible, Rich. I think, really, whether it would have been those three quarterbacks that went, or if it would have been a different quarterback that went, I think that's always going to affect the interest in our pick. So similar to last year, I think the way the first 2 picks came off the board affected the market for number 3, and just the same this year. I think the first 3 picks affected the market. And, if that would have been a different player, a position player, if that would have been Marvin, or if that would have been a different quarterback, obviously each team has a different board. And, I think certainly that would have affected the market, depending if, Drake or anybody else was there. I think that always affects what other teams are willing to do.
So let's walk us through, if you don't mind, Monti Ossenfort, the GM of the Cardinals. Walk us through your evaluation of Marvin Harrison Jr. Was it at the pro day 2 years ago?
And I think really, I think that gave us an extra set of an extra evaluation tool that most players didn't have, right? And so he worked out for C.J. Stroud, and he went through a full position drill back a year prior that most prospects don't do. And then, our scouting process, it takes effect over a year in advance. So our scouts really began last year, a year ago, evaluating Marvin off his 2022 tape. And so then our evaluation process continues through the 2023 fall, and we see Marvin put together another productive season this year. And we continue to evaluate him through that. And so Marvin, being a junior, wasn't able to go to the all-star games like the senior prospects. And so, we didn't have the full combine workout. He didn't do the pro day this year, but we had last year's pro day to go through. And so we felt we had plenty of information, plenty of tools, plenty of just tape to evaluate Marvin on. And then once we got a chance to meet Marvin at our 30 visit, also at the combine, we really felt comfortable with who Marvin was as a player and who Marvin was as a person.
Because the conversation around him has been, well, he's taking a totally different approach to the combine and everything else from any other player we've seen. And that includes quarterbacks. None of that raised any sort of concerns for you at all.
Yeah, and I think with that, Rich, it's really a personal decision. And, I think every year there's going to be prospects that don't complete or could check every box. And that could be for a personal decision, as it was in Marvin's case, or it could be an injury issue. Maybe a player wasn't able to compete at the combine or compete at the pro day. And so, there's not always going to be a perfect situation where every box is checked. And that was the case with Marvin. But we felt like we had more than enough information, and we were more than comfortable with who Marvin was, both on the field and off the field, that we were comfortable making him a member of our organization.
So what was a shorter period of time, Monti Ossenfort, you being on the clock before choosing Marvin Harrison Jr., or anyone in the draft room hearing from Kyler Murray after you chose Marvin Harrison Jr.? What was a shorter period of time?
Yeah, I would say, Kyler's reaction came in pretty quick. And so between JG and I sitting next to each other, that was pretty instantaneous when the let's go, or maybe a little bit more colorful language on that came flying through. So, but it wasn't just Kyler. I'd say multiple members of our team, we're excited. They're in tune to the draft. They're in tune to who we're picking. They're passionate about what we're doing and want to reach for success any way that we can. So, Kyler and multiple other players reached out and just were fired up with what we did over the weekend.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.